What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Raw review. This one is from April 3rd, 1995. This is the Raw after WrestleMania 11. Don't let WWE fool you like they love to. This was before Raw after Mania had surprises. This was basically just a regular episode. The funny thing is that Vince does say at the start that we are in store for surprises, so maybe they'll make me eat my words before I even watch this episode. Again, I have not watched most of the WWF pre 1996, so I don't know if they'll have a random debut on this episode. Like next year, spoiler alert, I believe Mankind makes his debut. Even though it really wasn't a big deal if I do say so myself, like looking back on it, that Mankind debut, WWE likes to make it out to be this huge thing just because of what Mick Foley turned out to be. But at the time, like, nobody really cared about it. And same thing with the Raw after WrestleManias. That really started like in 2012. Like, and they haven't really done it since. But I'm talking about like when they built it as like this, the greatest Raw of the year. You have to watch it. You don't know what's gonna happen. Like that stuff started in 2012 and like around that time and a little bit after that. The last like good Raw after WrestleMania that I can remember is like 2016, maybe 2017 and 18. The way that WWE makes it out to be, that really didn't start until like 2012 with the Raw after WrestleMania 28 when Daniel Bryan was super hot and Brock Lesnar came back at the end of that episode. That was a hot crowd. And that was like one of the best Raws after WrestleMania. I'm pretty sure some other stuff happened throughout that show, but that's the one that I can remember being like, holy shit, like they gotta make this Raw after WrestleMania like a big deal every single year. Before that, they never really gave a shit. They never really made it out as a big thing. Now, did they have debuts here and there, like big debuts? Yeah, I'm not gonna say they didn't, but WWE makes you think now that it has always been that way. But no, you go back to after WrestleMania 9, after WrestleMania 10, after WrestleMania 11 this year, nothing special really happens. It's just another episode for them. The first match is Bob Holly versus Hakushi. I think what I might have to do now and moving forward is just let you know if a match is worth watching and maybe give you how the match ends instead of going over most of the moves in the match so I don't really bore you cuz think about it. You rather watch it than somebody explain it to you cuz I could tell you they hit a super kick, they hit a Canadian destroyer, they hit a suplex off the top rope, a 450 splash, but unless you actually watch it and you look at the crowd reaction and kind of watch it for yourself, it's not gonna be the same if I just tell you what happened. You know what I mean? So I might just do that. I'll just watch the match myself, tell you if it's worth watching, and just tell you how it ends, and maybe a spot or two in the match that is worth talking about. But obviously, I'll still add the clips here and there if copyright allows me to. The new tag team champions, Owen Hart and Yokozuna, come out mid-match. They won them at WrestleMania, where Yokozuna got a huge pop, and the crowd started turning on the Smoking Guns. Like, I don't know where this love for Yokozuna came, but when he came back at WrestleMania 11, the crowd went wild for him, and they also obviously they went wild for them winning the tag team titles over the Smoking Guns, who were an over team. Yokozuna also looks a lot bigger too, so if you thought he was slow before, a snail would probably beat him in a 3 foot race. Owen Hart and Yokozuna turned their attention to the 1-2-3 kid at ringside. Meanwhile, Bob Holly got the upper hand. Yokozuna pulls the legs of Holly behind the ref's back, allowing Hakushi to hit a running senton for the win. Then Jim Ross recaps WrestleMania 11, and since we're here, I guess I'll give my 2 cents on WrestleMania as well. Out of everything, I would say the show was mediocre. Did not feel like WrestleMania at all, especially with the main event not being for the world title or two top wrestlers or any top wrestlers at all. The matches to go back to, for me at least, would be the tag match between the Smoking Guns and Yokozuna and Owen Hart, and the WWF title match with Shawn Michaels losing to Diesel. I will say though, that match isn't as good as the internet or the wrestling community hypes it up to be. Of course, everyone has their own taste, so judge it for yourself. But because Shawn Michaels had no momentum, besides winning a lackluster Royal Rumble, I will add, I don't think anybody really cared for this match at the time. So, like for example, when Shawn hits the super kick, nobody thought he was gonna win. Also, when Diesel hit the jackknife, it wasn't a move that got the crowd any hotter to see him win. They were just expecting it. And then the other match that I was kind of expecting it to be alright, but it was just kind of there. It was Bret Hart versus Bob Backlund. It was kind of ruined in my opinion because of Roddy Piper shoving the microphone. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Roddy Piper was the special referee for that match. The match kind of got ruined for me because Roddy Piper kept shoving the mic to ask either Bret Hart or Bob Backlund if they would quit like every other minute. The crowd even started to laugh at times when he would ask, and I was paying more attention to what Piper was doing than the actual match and the moves in it. I was just trying to see if Piper was gonna interfere to fucking ask him if they would give up. That's my thoughts on WrestleMania 11. Didn't really enjoy it at all. WrestleMania 10, I think, is still the best that I've watched in the last 3 years of these reviews. Next up, though, we get Diesel in an interview with Vince McMahon. Diesel does give Shawn Michaels credit and says that he deserves a rematch. He warns Shawn about Psycho Sid and that he should leave home without Sid for the rematch. Short but sweet promo from the champ. They are starting to do the in your house pay-per-views. So this rematch will be happening in a couple of weeks instead of having to wait until SummerSlam or King of the Ring. In some senses, I do like it, but at the same time, if they built up to a special edition of Raw, it could also work instead of doing a pay per view every 4 months or every 4 months, instead of doing a pay per view every single month. But at least now we don't have to wait, and now more guys will get chances at these in your house pay per views and title matches that, to be honest, otherwise would need to wait months, if not years, to get their shot. I mean, just look at Shawn. He went solo back in 1992 and had to wait for guys like Razor, Yokozuna, Undertaker, Luger, Bob Backlund, and Diesel to get their main event title feuds before they decided to push him. So yeah, we'll see what happens with those pay-per-views. If it's a little bit better, or if it makes it a little bit too fast to build the matches in between. Next up, Lex Luger and the British Bulldog take on Well Done. They pick up the win with the Heart Attack. They also won at WrestleMania against the Blue Brothers, so they're basically next in line for the tag team titles now. In this tag division, you just need like 2 wins and you're right there for contention of the titles. Next up, we have Bo Nakano versus Alundra Blaze. Bo Nakano apparently beat Alundra Blaze for the women's title back in Japan. I don't even know when the last time the women competed on Raw. So I don't, since like the last part of '93, I believe, and even in the middle, because they had a feud between Luna Vachon and Sensational Sherry, but they've just been on and off with these women's matches on TV. Like, do you have a division or do you not? Make up your mind. But a modified submission move followed by a pile driver to Blaze, then a dive to the outside onto Nakano, but when they get back in the ring, Bull hits a power bomb, then a top rope leg drop, but Alundra kicks out. Two German suplexes to Nakano, then another one on the outside. Nakano then tosses her into the steel steps, then misses a moonsault. So Alundra hits a fourth German suplex to win and become the new women's champion. Man, I don't know why we don't see more of Alundra Blaze and or Bull Nakano. If they've been on TV 4 times, they've had good matches 3 out of those 4 times at least. Then, after the match, as they were cutting to commercial, a mystery woman attacks Alundra and lays her out as refs come out to get her off. Pause. Or, no, wait, no. You can keep going on that one. Jim Cornette wondering if she's a fan or even a she, which is pretty insulting, but yeah, it looks like someone new being brought in to face the champion. We'll see how long that lasts on TV. So after that, Men on a Mission get a win. If you remember, they turned heel and then apologized, and I thought they were going to put the turn on hold, but Cornette was going on about how they fired their manager and turned their backs on their fans. So it looks like they have turned heel, which means they have to face the top face team in WWE, which is now Lex Luger and Bulldog, to see who becomes the number one contender, because they're the only two tag teams in the division. Then we have Shawn Michaels getting interviewed by Vince McMahon. HBK says that he is in pain after last night's match. He accepts the challenge for the rematch for the WWF title and promises to win. In regards to the comments made about Sid, Shawn states that he doesn't need a bodyguard, especially one that causes the ref to twist their ankle, which is what happened at WrestleMania, where Earl Hebner won Worst Actor ever in professional wrestling. Earl Hebner like twisted his ankle, and it was because of Sid. So Sid takes offense to Shawn telling him to stay home for the WWF title rematch. He gets hot, and Vince tells him to cool down, but they cut to commercial, and then when we come back, Shawn is laid out in the middle of the ring. Diesel runs out for the save, and this came out of nowhere. But this is something that I do remember happening. When Shawn came out for the interview and I saw the attire that he was wearing, I immediately knew. I will say again, it came out of nowhere, but now this adds a different layer to the WWF title picture. Now we might be getting Diesel versus Sid instead of Shawn versus Diesel in the rematch. Because of this attack, it looks like Shawn might be out for a little bit. Either way, this is now the start for Shawn's real run towards winning the title at WrestleMania 12. Now that he's in the main event storyline, all they really got to do is keep him there, and fans are going to start getting behind him. He's a smaller guy. He can play the underdog. This is where they're going to make Sid out to be the bad guy, even though I guess we'll get to it because we all know what happens with Sid and Shawn Michaels in like 1997 or 96, whatever that was. But yeah, we'll get that when we get there. But Shawn Michaels here gets laid out by the monster. He'll come back, probably be an underdog, and then go into WrestleMania 12. And we all know what happens from then on. Shawn Michaels basically becomes a made man. If you think about it, you can go all the way back to this turn by Sid that made Shawn into what he is. But we'll see. I'm not 100% sure if this actually gets the crowd behind Shawn Michaels. So we'll see. But that's how the show ends. So with that ending and the match between Bull Nakano and Alundra Blaze, I'm gonna give this episode a good grade. It still had matches that are skippable, but it got who they're pushing wins. So at least they had a reason to be on the show. I'm not sure how long until the In Your House pay-per-view, but since they have weeks instead of months to build it, maybe this is the start where Raw begins to feel more important to furthering storylines weekly. Like instead of waiting 2 to 3 weeks before we see Diesel, Shawn, or Sid, they might show up next week to continue this feud just to speed things up. Obviously, while slow builds are fine, and I prefer that to be honest, the way that Raw has been doing these slow builds, it ain't it. Like you'll see Shawn Michaels on one episode, Diesel 4 episodes later, and then Shawn Michaels like 5 episodes after that. You'll never see him on the same show. If you do, that's the last time you're gonna see him for like 3 4 weeks, like in between. Let's just say the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. So yeah, them doing these monthly pay-per-views. This is probably where Raw begins to feel more important every single week, where you're gonna get these main event storylines needing to be on the show just to build the pay-per-view. But yeah, with all that being said, this was kind of a longer episode, but it was a little bit of a WrestleMania recap and me just kind of shooting the shit, I guess. So, with all that being said, I'm out. I'll catch you guys on the next one.